told you just a minute ago, Paul has had something come up today, and we don't know what that is, so we hope everything's okay, and I'll try to get through this in his absence. But I'm here with Aaron Hayes, who is a friend of mine. We met playing pickleball.
Yeah.
I'll give the quick introduction. We met playing pickleball, and then later on we joined a Bible study, the same Bible study, the Holy Smoke Bible study is at the Ocoee Cigar Lounge. So how's it going, man? You good?
Dude, I'm doing good, man. I'm glad to be here with you. Yeah.
Good.
Paul's a little bit of a legend, I guess, because I don't think I've ever actually met him in person. I've just heard people talk about him.
Well,
so I think he's to me, he's a little bit like maybe a Yeti or a Sasquatch.
Yeah, I'm thinking that. And I don't know, I think he's heard of you too, because I think he's avoiding you, because I was so excited today because you two, like, I don't have any friends who are cut from any similar cloth as Paul is. He's a peculiar guy in a good way.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about you. So I've always wanted you guys to get in the same space and talk. So
in general, Yetis, I think we keep our distance.
You keep your distance.
I guess.
Yeah. So, man, let's are you, what kind of time frame are you on right now? Is this a hurried conversation, or is we're going to sit for 2 hours and chat?
Yeah, okay. I don't have anything after this.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm a teacher on spring break, so I've cleared some time, so it'll be fine. So why don't we start? I know you are from California. Why don't we start there? Let's talk about you growing up, and then we'll get to how you land at the media center at Walker Valley High School on a podcast with a Bradley County boy.
Okay. Yeah, I was born and raised in California. My mom comes from kind of an immigrant Hispanic family. My dad was kind of a military brat, and they met in Southern California at a missionary school called Christians in Action. And so they ended up getting married, and we basically bounced around between Long Beach and Bakersfield. I was born in Bakersfield, California, which is basically a farming town. And so very Hispanic, very poor. But my grandma on my dad's side, her husband had passed away, and so we moved all the way up to Northern California. Now, if you haven't been in California, a lot of people are thinking Baywatch. Like my wife and I went on a mission trip to Ukraine one time, and the only show they had seen that they knew about America was Baywatch.
Yeah.
And so we're like, that is not actually America. I mean, maybe it is. It's not the America I lived in.
I'll tell you, when you mention Bakersfield, the first thing I think of is Buck Owens.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right?
Oh, country music.
Isn't that kind of he refused to move to Nashville kind of thing?
Very famous.
Like a music scene there.
Yeah. Wow, you're pulling it out, man.
So that's my redneck take of
Buck Owens, Merle Haggard.
Yeah.
Is
Merle from there, or did he go to that camp?
Well, it's funny, Merle Haggard was in Bakersfield, but then he also was up where I was at in Northern California.
Huh.
So I actually met him once because I used to work at a plant nursery. Really? But it was a weird meeting, I guess.
Yeah, you a country music guy at all?
No, I mean, not really. No.
It's okay. All right, so you're Bakersfield, Long Beach.
Then to far Northern California.
Okay.
So if you haven't been out to California, you got to think like the whole East Coast. I mean, California would cover most of that. So, you're looking at a 10 to 12-hour drive from Bakersfield to Redding, depending on how fast you're willing to drive, to get to the upper end of Northern California. So it's mountains, it's rivers, it's lakes. And we were living up in the mountains in this little town called Weaverville. My dad was the pastor of the First Baptist Church there. And a dying church when we came, probably about 30 people. And probably the average age was 76 or 80, And this little family church, little Baptist church, had made a decision. But they didn't want to, even though they were in a small mountain town, they didn't know how to reach young families, but they didn't want to die and be the last generation in that church. Yeah. So when they brought my dad in, they all just made this decision that they were going to lay down their rights to their pews, take the name placards off, and that they were going to become a hugging church. They're going to hug people, welcome new people. And so when my family came in, we just started young families started coming in, and that church went from about 30 to probably about 200 people in a small mountain town.
Yeah. So, I've already mentioned I'm from Bradley County, born and raised, been here my whole life. And
Yeah.
if you don't go to the First Baptist Church here, you got thousands of options.
Yeah.
Is
true.
it different out there in Weaverville?
Well, Weaverville's a small mountain town.
Okay.
So you got to imagine there's, when we moved there, there's probably about 3,000 to 4,000 people there.
Okay.
It was a logging town. So, yeah, you had a couple options. You probably had 4 or 5 options in Weaverville. Now in Redding, where we ended up, which is about an hour east of where we're at. So imagine the ocean.
Yeah.
Okay. It's about 2 hours in over the Trinity Alps, you'd get to Weaverville. And then about an hour from there, you get to Redding. And Redding is the largest northern city north of Sacramento, California. So it's like a hub right on the interstate. And there's lots of churches there.
Okay. So how old are you when you arrive in Weaverville?
I think we arrived there and I was in kindergarten.
Okay. Okay.
So
and you
pretty
spent
young.
how long there?
We were in Weaverville for about 7 years.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
And your dad was part of sort of a reviving of the First Baptist Church
Of
there.
that little church, yeah.
Is that a success story?
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was really a sweet time for our family. It was a great place to grow up. I mean, everywhere. You ride your bikes everywhere. Every old person, you're waving to them. We just go up and knock on a random person's door. Hey, can we have some water? And they'd bring us water. It was real easy to get in trouble because everyone in town knew who you were. So,
Yeah.
That's
That's funny. And we're talking this is in the 80s, I would assume.
Yeah, late 80s, early 90s,
Okay, and you're about to take us to Redding.
About to go to Redding.
Okay,
Yeah.
take us there.
So that little mountain town Weaverville is in what's the center of what's called like the Golden Triangle. And it's where basically all the best marijuana is grown in the world. And so this was
Even at that time.
Even at that time.
Yeah,
This was
okay.
legal marijuana in a lot of
Legalized.
places.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of drugs or marijuana that was being grown there. But then what happened was a lot of these towns, because of the spotted owl, were closed down. A lot of the logging towns were closed down because you couldn't log in certain areas because you might kill one owl.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it devastated all of these communities. Hayfork and Weaverville was able to maintain its mill, but it dropped way down. And so these communities that were thriving by logging and maintaining the forest had fallen apart. And then when it would fall apart, what would come in is basically drug abuse. And so even though we were part of this little, wonderful little revival of this little Baptist church and, we knew everybody and it was good times, there was also drugs that were coming into that community. And we were just kind of looking at it, and there was just a real subculture of heavy drug use. And my dad was kind of reading the writing on the wall and going, do I want my kids to grow up in an environment where there's such a heavy undertow of drug use? And meanwhile, he had been going to seminary in Redding, and everyone had heard because, or at least where we were at that time, a revival of a Baptist church was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
To go from 30 to 250 or whatever it was. It's not the numbers that count, but it was the fact that this church was clearly dying on its last leg. And so the pastor of this other larger Baptist church in Redding, that was probably about 10 times bigger than our church that we were at, and they had a school. That pastor had tapped my dad and said, hey, why don't you guys come to Redding? We got a Christian school. Eventually I'm going to hand this thing off. We got so many more opportunities for your family here. And so my dad kind of read the handwriting on the wall, and that's what we did. Yeah.
Okay. And you went to Redding. At this time, by then you're, 14, 15 years old?
No, I was right at junior high age.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was right at 7th grade,
I got you. Is this a movie that you were in love with, or as a kid were you, man?
No. I mean, I'm probably to this day, I mean, there's just times where it feels like life's happening to you instead of you're happening to life.
Yeah.
So I was probably the kid that was like just kind of go with the flow, happy-go-lucky. But I loved Weaverville, and I missed my friends. And we ended up in this private Christian school. And to be honest, these guys were a bag of jerks.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It was a bunch of rich kids. And I grew up in this little mountain town where you're with your friends that you've known your whole life. And, here I come, and you have to have a dress code, and you got to wear slacks, and you got to wear a collared shirt, and you have to wear a tie. And then the kids were kind of jerks. And I was little. Like, I was a little guy.
Really?
Yeah. And so, like, I was the second smallest kid in the class,
Wow.
But probably in classic form, the kid who was the biggest bully in the class towards me, his name was Jared, he's constantly picking on me. And he was that kid in 7th grade who already had facial hair.
Yeah.
Like he had chest hair in 7th grade. And
Yeah.
you're like, he kept picking on me, and I was half his size, and I finally just had it, I'm trying to be good because my dad's now the new pastor here and everything, but this kid would not leave me alone. And so I'm trying to get to class, and everyone's out of the hallway now. It's just me trying to get to class and this kid following me to pick on me.
Huh.
And he tripped me or something, and I was like, all right, I'm probably gonna get my butt kicked here. I threw my backpack off. I turned around. I grabbed him by the collar, and mind you, like, I'm looking up at him.
Yeah.
He's full grown in 7th grade. And I can say this because he didn't grow after 7th grade.
Yeah, he's tapped out.
He's tapped out, but he hit it early, and I didn't.
Yeah.
So I grabbed him, and I slammed him against the window. And then I realized this guy's going to kill me, right? Because he's twice as big as me, but he wasn't expecting me to stand up to him.
Yeah.
But basically, I was like, you better leave me alone.
Yeah.
And apparently Aaron Hayes has a pretty good crazy eye when
Oh,
I'm
yeah?
mad. So we ended up becoming best friends, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
And you probably outgrew him by a lot because you're a pretty big guy. You're
Yeah,
not small.
I outgrew him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very cool. So you stayed in Reading for a pretty good bit
I stayed in Reading till I was 40.
till you were 40.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to do your age here, but you've been here in Tennessee for how long?
It'll be 5 years in December. We're about 4.5 years, something like that.
Okay. Okay. Before we get to Tennessee, let's talk about, because I know you and I have talked a lot, and I think I have snippets of what you do or sort of the path you've been on, but at some point you're a school teacher.
Yeah.
Talk me into that.
Well, me being a teacher is like the craziest thing I would have ever thought in my life. Because I
Really?
barely graduated from high school.
Really?
I mean, I tell the story a lot, but like, I was barely passing my classes. I was only passing because I was actually good at sports. I was good at basketball, and I remember my Spanish teacher told me, she's like, it's hopeless to teach you a foreign language. So she'd have me in the hallway making banners for the basketball game, and that's how she passed me.
Now,
So,
okay.
but I ended up becoming a teacher, so there's kind of
There's
a wild
no way
story.
that's got anything to do with your level of intelligence. Is that right or no?
Well, I mean, I don't know about you. You see some of these boys and they can't focus in class. It's not because they're stupid, but their attention span's not there. And then you meet them as adults and you're like, he's actually pretty sharp. And he was never stupid, but it just like his brain didn't click or he wasn't interested.
Is that because they just don't fit in the box that we're trying to fit them in?
Well, I mean, how philosophical do you want to get?
I mean,
'Cause
before I asked that question, I thought this may change this whole conversation. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm that guy. I'm that guy.
Well, I get really frustrated having been an educator. And when I tell you like where I landed in education, this might make more sense. But, I was never stupid, but I was treated like I was stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I was talked down to, and it really messed with me. But, I was the hardest worker. I had huge integrity and work ethic. I had really high level of people skills. None of that meant anything to my educational experience, K-12. It didn't mean a darn thing. And it was always weird to me because like even when I was in Weaverville and I was a little kid, I was the guy who would hang out with the World War II vets. I didn't even hang out with the kids. They'd all be playing. I wanted to go hear the stories about World War II. I wanted to hear about their lumber company. I wanted to hear about their work. You know, we used to do these things in Weaverville where the either like single mothers or like older couples, like we would, because we were up in the mountains, we'd cut wood for them. Mm-hmm. So every year we'd cut like 8 to 10 cords of wood as a church and then distribute firewood to all these families. And I remember those were like my favorite days of the summer. Yeah. You know, like I would go work with the guys, but that didn't mean anything education-wise. That's probably why I accelerated in basketball, was because I found an avenue for me to be physical and kinesthetic and have to have teamwork. And so like even early on in basketball, even though I wasn't the most athletically talented kid, I was the hardest worker and I had the best communication skills. So I kept getting put into like team captain leadership roles, even though there were other guys. Like my best friend Paul he's 6'8", jump out of the gym. And we had 2 6'8" guys on our team. Like we were very good. We could beat the local college team. Like we were a good team. However, those guys were book smart in a classroom. I could barely pass my class. Yeah. It didn't mean anything to me. It had no value to me, but put me with people, put me with a team, put me in a situation that's physical. And I was like, dude, I'm in. And I'll do anything to be in on that. I'll even do a little bit of homework. You know, so. Yeah. But the question was about teaching. Yeah, sure. So I thought I was stupid. I graduated from high school. And the thing that I did was I had gone to the junior college. I'd had a little bit kind of a scholarship opportunity playing basketball, but I turned it down because I was like, I can't hardly pass a class in college or in high school. How am I going to pass a class in college? So I started working, and my now wife, her mom and her grandma came to town, and they looked at her and they said, you know, Sarah, it's just as easy to marry a doctor or a lawyer as it is that guy. And I'm over there like in the corner, you know. I had failed 36 units worth of college classes because I would start the class and then I wouldn't finish it. First time I got any kind of feedback that was negative, I'm like, forget this, dude, I'm out. Yeah. And so I kept dropping. I'd start classes and drop them or just, you know, not attend. And eventually that caught up till I was like on very serious academic probation. But my wife sat me down. She said, this is what my mom and grandma said. And I was like, who says that? I'm like the nicest kid in America. Like I work really hard. Yeah, I'm not very smart. But she's like, stop saying that. You are smart. Yeah. And I was like, I have a lot of things that prove you wrong. I never got an A in my entire life. Like not on anything. Like the kids who get the gold star, I never got any of that. I never been on honor roll, nothing. Like, I mean, the highest grade I got, I think, was like a C, maybe a B. So she just looked at me and she said, you're not stupid. And she said, we're going to take a class together. And she said, no one's made you do homework and taught you any study skills. And she says, we're taking a class and I'm going to make you do those things and prove to you that you're not dumb. And so we took like a philosophy class. I was either philosophy or world religions. I can't remember. Yeah. But we got into the class. She made me do my homework. The first A I ever got in my life was after failing 36 units worth of college classes and only being graduated from high school because I was good at sports and they didn't want me to miss the game Friday night. And when that happened, it's like this belief over me just shattered.
How old are you there?
I was probably 21 at that 21.
Point. Okay, keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, probably 21. So at that point, I don't want to cuss on your thing, but, you know, I literally was like, holy crap, I'm not dumb. And that, like, changed everything. I never stopped getting A's from that point forward. I ended up, like, every single class I took, I was like, I'm smart enough to do this.
Just changing your belief a little bit.
Just changing my belief. And so then I proceeded to, like, every single class, A. And I ended up basically getting out of academic probation. I got into a degree completion program at Simpson University, which is like the equivalent of Lee. It's an equivalent. And they got me into a degree completion program, graduated with honors, and I started the teaching credentialing program, which I never thought I'd be a great teacher, but I was coaching basketball. And my wife was like, you would be an amazing teacher. And I'm like, you have lost your mind. And she's like, no, Aaron. She's like, you're really good at teaching. I'm watching you coach these kids. Kids love you. And so I didn't have a direction for my life, but I had a strong, smart woman who saw something in me.
Sounds like it, yeah.
And so she believed in me. So I said, okay, that's what I'm doing. It's kind of like rolling the dice, and or maybe like in the Bible, you scroll through and then you point down and you go, God's going to speak to me from this verse, you know?
Yeah.
Please let it be the prayer of Jabez, whatever, But like, she kind of like pointed, and I was kind of like, okay, sure, teacher. I mean, I thought I was done before, so, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to go do it. So I did that, and I started basically substitute teaching, and I found myself gravitating towards the down and out. I was substitute teaching all over the county. But I found myself in these times where I would be in alt ed situations, schools for kids that had been kicked out of the comprehensive site, maybe for drugs or for truancy, maybe they got into too many fights or, what have you.
Yeah.
They would land at these in California, like an at-risk school.
Yeah, sort of like our Goal Academy, our alternative school here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like a step between like prison, it's like the step before, like it's a credit recovery school.
Yeah.
So I started substitute teaching there, and one of the professors in that program at Simpson was the administrator of one of the schools, and he had pulled me aside after I'd substitute taught in his school, and he's like, Aaron, I'm ready to hire you. Like, let's go. And I hadn't finished my credential because I couldn't afford to. I'm like, I can't take 6 months off to teach for free and pay tuition. I just couldn't afford it. And so he was ready to offer me a job, and I'm like, I would love to, but I don't have a full teaching credential yet. And so he was able to work some angles, and he got me hired on an emergency credential. So I got paid to finish my teaching credential.
Yeah. Okay.
And started basically working in this at-risk environment and discovered that I loved it.
Really?
I connected with these kids who I didn't have a life that was as hard as theirs, but I connected with the feeling like the underdog. I connected with giving away the thing I never got, which is I never got anyone who believed in me when I was in those years. And for whatever reason, it drew this side of me, it pulled this part out of me that became honestly very spiritual. I felt like God had put me in this place for these kids, and I had a compassion for them. And but it was a very difficult environment.
Yeah. So I know that we're going to get to this pastoral role that you're going to eventually come into. And is this like a chicken or the egg question, that teaching and identifying with all those traits? Is that what inspires that in you, or is identifying with all those people, is that coming from a place that you already knew you had? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I would love to say that I'm like the kind of person who functions from awareness first and then goes and takes action on it.
Yeah.
I would say it's total reverse for me. This was all discovery. I discovered when I was substitute teaching that I liked those kids more. There was a really hoity-toity kind of a charter school in our area that all, was basically like the lawyers, doctors, kids, like they all ended up at this particular school. And a lot of the teachers that were there were people I'd gone to school with, because we were used to that private school environment. It was pretty much like a private school environment. And I went and had substitute taught there, and I'm like, this is not for me. I don't like it here. I don't like that that environment, because I've always felt it was judgmental, and it missed the kids like me who had a lot of potential but were always seemingly shut down or put in a box or demeaned, when I'm looking out and going, I got more people smarts than half the kids in this room, but I get treated like I'm dumber than a box of rocks. And it just wasn't, in my heart, it wasn't true, but I had nothing to go against that with. And then I get over here with these kids in this at-risk environment, and they were really street smart. I mean, these were not stupid kids, but you look at their life and they got nothing to show for that smarts because their whole life's in survival mode. And so, you know, I would say I went into that environment not from a place of knowing my skill set. I went from a place of recognizing the kids and wanting to be a believer for them and be that person who believes in them. The guy who first hired me, his name was Paul Jones, and I remember he used to talk about being a merchant of hope. As educators, we're called to be merchants of hope. And there's a whole, I think he maybe have pulled that from a poem. I don't remember the poem, but I remember thinking I'm a merchant of hope. And I never had a merchant of hope in my life, but I'm going to be one for these kids. And so as I started to do that, that deepened this part of me that cared for the down and out. I mean, I think, you know, the pastoral part of me that's going to develop, you'll kind of see it as we talk more, but there was a specific moment. I mean, you got to imagine the school I was working at. It was crazy. I was not actually in Reading. The first school I taught at was in a smaller town called Anderson, just outside, about 10 miles outside of Reading. And very rundown little town. But these kids were like passing out drunk in the field before they made it to the door of the school.
Wow.
Right, there's like a field, like a football field. It was a practice field for the high school. You know, this was their alt-ed school, but we had one girl pass out, you know, 100 feet from the front door. Goodness. You know, thought she was dead, you know. But we had these wild kids, and I remember the teachers had given up on the kids. They just did packet work. They didn't even try and teach anymore. Just give them a packet. You know, if you don't want to do it, that's your fault. That's your life. If you want to do it, you can do it. You could catch up if you wanted to, but we're basically like babysitters, but they're picking up a paycheck.
Yeah.
And it drove me nuts. Like, this is wrong. We got to inspire these kids. We got to believe in these kids. We got to call these kids higher. But it was a real tough environment because all the kids were in complete survival mode. And I remember I came in one day, and the toughest kid in that school was not a guy. It was this girl named Melissa. And she was this tiny little blonde-haired girl. All the boys were afraid of her. But one of the teachers there was this guy. I won't use his name. He's as big as a barn door. He's probably 6'6". He's an old farmer guy. He taught ag. His hands were like as thick as a baseball mitt. And he's standing. I walk in the building in the morning. It's like 7:30 a.m. He's standing in the doorway and booming down, yelling and pointing at someone. And I come around the corner, and here's Melissa standing on a chair, screaming right back in his face.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, what is happening here? You know, I'm like, are you guys okay? Yeah. You know, and then they're still screaming and yelling. And I just was thinking, like, have I landed in hell? Like, what the heck's going on here? But back to this moment that I had where I kind of discovered this deeper thing was I was really discouraged because I was getting told to F off every day. Like, every day. Matter of fact, that school was so rough, my master teacher, because I was getting my teaching credential, he was supposed to come in and like observe me at least like once a month and like give me feedback. He came once and he never came back.
Oh.
He was like, I don't know how you work in this environment.
Ugh.
And I got student teacher of the year because he was blown away that I was even able to stay there. Because he was like, he came once and he was like, okay, I can get you at this school or that school. He was trying to move me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I actually want to be here. But this girl, Melissa, who's not afraid to scream at an adult in their face, like, I'm getting told to F off every day. And it was beating me up, man. I'd get in the car at the end of the day and like just felt morally defeated. Like, I'm doing everything I can to help these kids. I can't get anywhere. And I was driving home from Anderson to Reading one day, and I'll admit it, I mean, I'm 6 months in. I'm feeling totally defeated, and it was the first time I cried as an adult man. I'm in the car, and tears just start rolling down my face because I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I'm giving everything I have. The other teachers aren't even trying. You know, I got girls screaming at a teacher, but worse, I have a teacher screaming at a kid. You know, I've got a master teacher who won't even come. He's afraid to come to the campus. And I'm on my own. And in that moment where I'm just feeling all these heavy emotions, it's not like I heard an audible voice, but I was really crying out to God, like, I thought you called me here. I don't know what to do. And just like a quiet voice in my mind was like, you have to find something good in these kids if you're going to stay. And that little thought, you have to be able to find something good. It's like it started reverberating in my mind, and I started thinking, how can I find something good? And if I'm going to find something good, it can't just be good for the easy kid. It's got to be good for the toughest kid. Mm. And that thought of, can I find something good in the toughest kid, which is Melissa? So the next day I went back to school and I thought, this is my mission. It's not even to teach the lesson. I have to be able to find something good in Melissa. The problem was I couldn't get more than a couple of minutes into teaching before Melissa had hit someone, slapped someone, stabbed someone with a pencil, called someone a name. We couldn't get more than 5 minutes before it was chaos, because I had 15 wild kids in a room, the wildest kids you can imagine. Yeah. And so I'm like, how am I going to get here? So a day goes by. I couldn't catch Melissa doing anything good. Day 2 goes by, can't catch anything. Day 3, day 5, the first week is gone. 2 weeks goes by, 3 weeks go by. At the end of like week 3 or something, Melissa gets to school early and I realize this is my chance. Yeah. There's nobody here for her to fight. I'm not going to fight her. The ag teacher guy, he's not here. So I was like, I'm thinking I got to come up with something quick. And so she comes in the classroom and she sits down and puts her stuff. And I said, hey, Melissa, could you make this copy for me? You know, I'm just really running behind this morning. And, you know, if you could just take this up to the office and make a copy. And she says, I don't know how to make a copy. And I was like, well, don't worry about that. You just take it up to Lazy at the office. They'll make the copies for you and you can just bring it back. Would you be willing to do that for me? And she was like, okay. So I give her the paper. She starts walking out my door. As soon as she walks out my door, I call the office. Don't make eye contact with her. Don't look at her. She's going to ask you for a copy. Just make the copy and hand it back to her. Don't say a thing. So she goes up there. They do that. They send it back. And the next day, I was like, this was my moment. I stopped the whole class. I said, hey, guys, I got to make a special presentation because somebody did something yesterday, and I'm creating an award for it. I'm calling it the Teacher's Helper Award. I was in desperate need for some help. This person came in. They were so respectful. They did exactly what I asked. And so today I'm giving the Teacher's Helper Award to Melissa. And the whole class, about everyone's jaws like hit the floor, including Melissa's. And I looked over and I had made this a Microsoft Word, a little award thing, and I gave it to her. And everybody was just staring at her, you know? And so I'm like, okay, everyone, you guys get on your computers. You're going to do an assignment. And Melissa just sat there. Everyone else got up. She just sat there. And I went over and I said, hey, Melissa, can I actually have that back so I could hang it up on the wall? And she grabbed that thing, she shoved it in her purse, and she said, you can't have it. No one's ever given me anything like this before. Huh. And it broke my heart because, you know, here she is, 14 years old. No one's ever said anything nice to this girl. I never had another problem with her in my class. To that point, I didn't have a problem with hardly any of the kids in my class. Because what I learned was that when I began to be able to see beyond the front, to see beyond the pain, to see beyond the suffering, to see beyond the behaviors, and to see into the potential, that's the place where the Holy Spirit's working, where God's working in people, that if I can see with God's eyes how he sees them, anything's possible. And that shifted me, and it changed everything for me. It changed everything for how I became a teacher. It changed everything for how I became a leader and worked with other leaders. Like everything I do is wrapped around a primary shift that happened early, which is that it takes no skill with my human eyes to see what's wrong, but it takes the Holy Spirit to see what's going good in your life. Mm-hmm. there's that verse that talks about praying without ceasing. You're thinking, how can I be praying all the time? But what if prayer isn't just the words that come out of your mouth? What if it's an awareness that God is always the first mover? He's always at work, and my job is just to see, where's God moving? How do I get behind what he's doing? Because on my best day, that's all that I'm doing. It's not me. It's me seeing where God's moving and me participating with his movement. That's always going to be my best play. But I learned that in the fires of this school. It shifted my classroom. It shifted my environment. It shifted that girl, Melissa.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened to that kid.
No.
I don't know what happened to her. But I believed in her, and she felt it. And at least for a day or for that semester, she discovered that there was a person that believed in her, and it motivated or inspired or activated her to be reasonable in my classroom, and it gave her a chance to learn.
How long, now this happened, this Melissa story, this happened as you were getting your teaching credential.
Yeah. This was my first couple of months teaching, as I was still getting my credential at the time.
You think about Melissa a lot in that moment, what she taught you?
Well,
or what that situation taught you, maybe?
It played out so many times over and over that was like, how like in a story, maybe a person has like a moment that they cross a threshold that changes how they see everything, and then they can never unsee it. That moment with Melissa was the first threshold that I crossed that caused me to see everything different. In my marriage, in my parenting, in how I pastored. And it's funny that, 25 years later, when I talk about that, it still gets me,
Yeah.
Just a lot of people right now that don't feel seen. And I think like one of the giftings that God's given me is to deeply care that people feel believed in and to help them find their path to reach their potential. I just love it.
Yeah.
I love it. But the shift happened in such a difficult environment that I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
Now
I want to get into the pastoring and coaching, but I got one more school question for you.
Okay.
I was a first responder. I was a sheriff's deputy here, and then detective, and then I became a teacher, and I'm often looked at in those school safety conversations and all that. I understand you were a kind of a school safety guy for at least a day, weren't you? Didn't you have to respond to to an incident?
You're talking about the very first day I ever set foot on that campus.
Was that on day one?
Yeah. Day one, you guys, this is the situation. Day one of me.
How old are you?
Okay.
Early 20s?
Yeah.
Still?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Maybe 25.
Okay.
Maybe 24.
Is this the same campus that Melissa was on?
Yes.
Okay, keep going.
This happened before Melissa. This happened before I met Melissa.
So day one.
Day one.
You walk in.
I walk in, and I wasn't even hired yet. I was a substitute teacher. And I was substituting, and all of the men on campus were gone. Even the principal. All the men were gone. It was substitute teachers that happened to all be female, plus the regular teachers who were female, and the school secretary who was female. And so I'm in the classroom, and I'm trying to look through, okay, what am I going to do today? Because I'm substitute teaching. This school's giving out packet work, so there's just packets everywhere, and I'm trying to make sense of these packets. And the phone rings, and it's the secretary, and she says, "Mr. Hayes, could you come up to the office for a second? We could use your help." And I'm like, "Okay." And she said, "We'll send someone over to cover your classroom." And I'm like, "All right." So I get out of my classroom. I walk the 30 feet to the office door, because that's how close my classroom was to the front door. And she says, "Mr. Hayes, I'm sorry to do this." She said, "But there's no men on campus today." And she said, "Do you see that boy sitting over there on that bench?" And I said, "Yeah." She says, "His name's Dalton." And she said, "There's a rumor going around that Dalton's going to stab some kid, in your class. and we have the police and probation coming, but can you talk to him? And I'm thinking like,
is he sitting in the office on a bench?
no, he's sitting out in the quad he's sitting on a
So he's
picnic
outside.
table. He's outside.
Okay.
Mad.
Oh.
You know when you see people sitting and they're like ready to fight
Yeah.
and there's no one else in the quad and you're kind of like, don't go near that guy. Even though you got there's a wide berth you could give him, like, you should give him a wide berth.
Yeah.
There's no guys on campus. I don't know this guy at all. And she's like, can you go talk to him? And I'm thinking, what in the world am I going to say? So I was literally already nervous because it was my first day at that school.
So they're saying he's going to stab somebody. So it's highly likely he has a knife or some sort of weapon.
He has a knife or a weapon.
Yeah.
Will you go talk to him? And I'm a substitute.
Okay.
And I'm nervous because this was like my first time substituting at an alt-ed school.
And you feel pressure in this moment to like,
yeah.
These ladies are all looking to me to sort of, okay, keep going.
So that's the context. So I'm walking out on wobbly legs over to this kid who's bigger than me.
Oh, this is a big kid. He's not even a little runt.
No. He's a big boy.
Dang it.
And he looks like his dad was probably like a Hell's Angel kind of a kid.
Okay.
Tough kid. Like this school is already the school of the toughest kids. Dalton's the toughest of the tough guys.
Okay.
And he's out there pissed. And I come walking up and I don't know what came over me. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was like, I'm not going to sit across from him and I'm definitely not getting confrontational.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never even been in a fight. So I'm thinking, I'm not sure what I was going to do. So I sat next to him on the bench. I didn't make eye contact with him. I just kind of sat in a shoulder to shoulder way. And I said, hey man, I said, what's your name? And he said, my name's Dalton.
But hang on, can I pause you right there? Because that's not what most 20-something dudes would do. Most 20-something dudes would accidentally put themselves in a shoulder squared, you know what I'm saying? Where do you get that from?
Well, I've never had to fight, and it wasn't because I didn't have the opportunity. It's because I haven't met anyone I wasn't able to eventually make a friend out of.
Okay.
And so, like, there's a part of me that's like, actually don't really want, I don't want to fight this guy. Mm-hmm. But B, I think like intuitively, I'm trying to remind myself that I'm the adult here and that I don't have to fear a child.
Yeah, but that's the point I'm trying to make is most 20-something guys.
I have no idea where it came from.
Unintentionally.
Yeah.
They wouldn't say, I'm going to square up and fight this guy. They would say, I'm going to keep a little bit of a distance. I'm going to face him. And it wouldn't be so I can defend this or do. It would just be that would just be the natural reaction.
But I've been the kid.
Who understands body language in their early 20s enough to know that sitting.
It came intuitive. I have no idea.
Okay.
I had a kid pull a knife on me in high school one time. In the Christian school. He was a totally crazy kid. He literally held a knife to my throat. And I remember being in the locker room and being like,
California's wild, man.
Yeah. And that was a Christian school. I didn't tell anybody. He held a knife to my throat. And I was like, dude, you don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. And he's like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, no, dude, you really don't. I'm like, I've been nothing but nice to you. I'm talking while he has a knife at my throat.
Yeah.
And he was like, why are you being nice to me? And I'm like, dude, because you're a human. I don't know what's going on with your life. It must be rough.
Huh.
And I talked the kid out of cutting me. So I don't know, like there's this part of me that like under like really tense circumstances, I find a different way. So somehow I sat next to this kid and I introduced myself. Hey, my name's Mr. Hayes. Like I literally have never been here before. And I said, I don't know what you got going on. I said, there's a rumor that you have a knife, that you got some beef with some kid. And I said, I don't even know who this kid is. I don't even know if it's true. And I said, I'm not here to get into it with you. I'm just letting you know your probation officer's coming right now. The police are coming. And man, it would go way better for you if you just gave me the knife, if you have it. And if you sat on that chair outside the front office, and I'll put in a good word for you that you gave me no problems. And he said, okay. And he pulled out like an 8-inch locking blade knife and handed it to me. And he went and sat on the bench. And I said, good for you, man. And that was the end of the conversation. That was my first 10 minutes of being on that campus.
Wow.
I mean, I got a lot of other crazy stories. Like we had a
Yeah.
bunch of issues with gangs at one point. I've had a kid tell me he was going to cut my guts out and show my family. Like, I mean, we've had a lot of crazy stuff happen, but
Wow. So you've said earlier that you had some people skills, and you've told me multiple stories that are evidence that you had some people skills. Are you mirroring from somebody? Is this dad? Is this uncle? Is this pastor? Is it?
I don't know, man. I'm not mirroring from anyone.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know where it came from.
I got you. Just somewhere in your growing up,
Somewhere,
you accidentally learned some things. I say that a lot.
yeah. I don't honestly know where it came from.
Huh.
I just in those types of circumstances, for whatever reason, something different would come out of me.
Hmm.
It wasn't that I wasn't scared, Like
Yeah.
with the Dalton kid, I was really scared, thinking, what in the world? He's got a knife and I'm gonna go talk to him. Somehow I just find myself walking over there. The kid who told me he was gonna cut my guts out and show my family. I remember looking at him, and he was scary. He's a big boy.
Yeah.
I remember looking at him and I said, I know you don't mean that. I said, I don't know what I've done that's made you feel uncomfortable or unsafe. And I said, but I know you don't mean that. I said, I'm not calling the police on you right now, but I'm telling you should probably leave my classroom.
Yeah.
You should probably get away from me until you can cool down.
But that right there, the ability in those moments to speak to the human in someone, and you're literally disarming them.
But I felt like it was, I mean, I don't want to make everything over spiritualized.
Mm-hmm.
I literally, in those moments, I felt called by God to be on that campus, on those 2 campuses that I was on where I was dealing with most of this crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was like the Holy Spirit. I felt like I was actually, when you're younger and you're like, am I really Christian? Do I really believe this? Am I really going to heaven? And I'm like, how do I know? Like, I feel it's undeniable. I have confirmation that I'm going to heaven, because how in the world would I do those things in my own power if God weren't a part of my life? And there was this part of me that what I was doing on those campuses didn't feel like Aaron's a history teacher. It felt more like Aaron was a missionary to show kids and people God's love through me. And that's more important than any history fact I can teach you.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm going to do that, I can't respond the way you think I'm going to respond. I've got to respond the way, in a corny way, but like, what would Jesus do? I got to respond in a way that's not fearful of you, that's not fearful of losing my life, which sounds weird being a teacher in a school, but we were in a wild environment at times.
Yeah, you're in the 1%.
Yeah, but that's not fearful, but that's coming from a place of love. And that, like, literally, I mean, the one school where the kid told me he was going to cut my guts out and show my family, I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. There was a river that ran through the middle of our city, and I would go fly fish in the morning. I never caught a dang thing. I'm horrible at fishing. I mean, I have a 15-year not catching a fish streak, and that's not hyperbole. Wow. That's real.
Okay.
But I would fish in the morning, and I would just be praying to God to give me the strength and the patience to not react to what the kids were going to say or do. Because I know they're going to tell me to F off.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they're going to be aggressive. I know there's going to be a fight today. I know that this stuff's going to happen. And if I get reactive, I add no value to help them in their life that's burning down around them. But I want to be so safe that no matter how wild you get because of whatever your life circumstances are, that you'll never be able to look back and say that Hayes mistreated me or Hayes did anything but show me love. It wasn't that I didn't have boundaries. I had boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I gave, referrals and, sometimes detention. But the thing is I got so good at being anchored in my spirit with God that the kids actually called me Purple Haze for a couple years. The Jimi Hendrix song.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were like, nobody can be that calm unless you're doing drugs. Everyone thought I was doing drugs. They're like, we know you're on some kind of drugs, Hayes. Like, so they called me Purple Haze because they couldn't make sense of it. What they didn't know is I'm getting up at 5 a.m. I go fish for an hour and a half in the morning, never catching anything, but just being out there praying, asking for God for peace and for patience and for love for these kids that were so difficult, you know.
Huh.
But when I left, I got laid off in a state budget crisis. That's
Okay.
how I became a pastor.
Yeah, take us there. Go ahead.
I'd helped start a church and started the youth ministry, and we had like 30, 40 kids going, and then I handed it off to some college boys, and I got my master's degree, and I wanted to be the principal of that school. That was my goal. But I got laid off in a state budget crisis like right after I got my master's degree, and the pastor had come to me and he said, "Hey, will you come start our youth ministry and kids ministries and stuff?" And I was like, "Dude, I'm totally called here." Like, imagine all these circumstances happening, and I'd kind of already in a short period of time started to make a reputation as a teacher in that environment, and in the community, people started to know about me. And so I'm like, God's hand is on me here. Like, I'm not coming. But then he said, pray about it for 2 weeks. Let's meet again. The day before I was supposed to meet with him, I got laid off. So
Wow.
I came back and I was like, I guess I'm supposed to come with you because like I just got laid off. It didn't matter that I'd been teacher of the year for Simpson. It didn't matter that, I had built all these relationships and influence and connection. None of that mattered because in California in the union, they just went by. I think they laid off 53 teachers or something, and I was like 52 of number 53. I just got laid off. It's just a line, across the district. And so, but when I came over, I didn't lead any kid to Jesus when I was there because you're not supposed to proselytize. But every kid knew I was part of my church. Every kid knew I was a Christian. And so the youth group that I had started prior that had like 30, 40 kids, it had dwindled down to about 12 homeschool kids. And I came over to now be the youth pastor, and that school had 168 kids in it. 2/3 of the school became my youth group 6 weeks later.
Wow.
So we went from 12 homeschool kids to 112 kids, 100 of which might rob you or break into your car on their way home. That's how I started. So we had the wildest youth group ever because it's like, it looked like an ICP convention, Insane Clown Posse.
Yeah.
It's like
we
had the first youth group in my backyard in this like pretty nice middle class neighborhood, and every hoopty car and just randomness walking through this neighborhood. All our neighbors were like, "What's going on?" And 100 of them showed up.
Oh my word!
So I rallied like 30 people to come help me with this youth ministry. And
you need a lot of chaperones. Yeah,
you need a lot of chaperones. And it's not just chaperones while they're in the backyard. I had people patrolling the neighborhood and like gotta make sure they're not smoking weed in my neighbor's yard. And
oh my God!
But these kids came hungry. They weren't hungry for lights and fog machines and worship music. They never heard any of that. They were hungry. We had real conversations about life. We're having real conversations about sex. We're having real conversations about why not smoke weed? Why have a family? Why be married? Why not sell drugs? Why not commit crimes? I mean, I had kids coming that were so intense that, and this is also the beginning of my leadership journey, because I only kept those 100 kids for about 6 weeks before the kids stopped coming, because I could not mentor 100 kids on my own. And the adults that I had were wonderful people who cared about kids, but they only knew how to do youth ministry if it was done like a program. Meaning, we're going to do this lesson, you're going to ask these 3 questions, but those kids are unscripted. We're not on a script. I had no idea what we were going to talk about today.
Yeah.
You got to be able to roll like that.
Yeah.
You got to be able to take whatever crazy thing they've got going on in their life, and you got to be able to sit with them and then turn it.
Is that because they'll sniff out the structure and now it feels like something else?
Because it doesn't feel genuine.
Yeah.
You think about a kid who's street smart. He's at 15, 16, 17, they're very capable of deep conversations.
Mm-hmm.
They got a lot of real world experience, and they're not coming to be entertained. They're coming with deep questions. And if you're not ready, and I found the adults needed to be mentored before we could ever mentor any kids. It was shocking how many people have been in church their whole life. They'd never been discipled. They've never been mentored. They've never had to dig deeper other than the surface of I go to church and I tithe and I sing the songs and I go home. But they had not hit the rubber meets the road place of like really heavy conversations. And I had 100 kids coming with heavy questions. And so I would be running out trying to track these kids down around the city. I'd be driving and I'd see them and I'd pull over and I'd go, where are you? How come you didn't come back? And they're like, oh man, that guy said he was going to, meet me up or take me to lunch or, and these are kids that have been let down by the foster care system, kids that have been let down by everybody. And now they came to your Christian-y church thing and that person said they were going to take you out to lunch or take you to coffee or go buy you a Slurpee and hang out with you. And then they don't show up. And they'd be like, fuck that guy. That's what they'd say to me. Hayes, I love you, but screw that guy.
Yeah.
And it made me really mad. But that was the beginning of me learning how to be a leader. Because I learned, on my own, I can help a certain number of kids. But if I want to multiply my impact, I have to be able to give away some of these things that are instinctual to me, my unconscious competence. Like you asked, like, how did you know to do that? I don't know. Yeah. It was unconscious, but it was competent. It was the best move.
Yeah, sure.
But I didn't know how. And so I realized, like, for me to multiply my ability to serve the most hurting kids of our city, I had to start paying attention to the things that I did without thinking competently. And I had to learn how to start discipling people to learn how to have deeper conversations, more difficult conversations, to actually know and be in your word on a different level, to be able to actually like sit with another person, not just when everything's going well, but when things are going difficult. And it probably took us 5 years before we got back to a place where the youth group had kind of grown to that level of a footprint and beyond that. Now
you're going to go, I'm resisting just skipping straight to now. I want to continue just progressively working through this story. You have this youth group, you have 100 kids show up, you start realizing like, hey, I've got a lot of people that I'm dependent on that probably need some discipleship themselves.
Yeah.
What's the next sort of landmark you see in this story? The next turn, the next progression?
Well, I got really upset with that team. And I remember we were meeting at this point in it was formerly a bar that was supposed to get turned into a youth center, but they didn't fully get funding, but we were able to rent out the front half of it. It used to be like a club/bar. And we were renting that space, and which was comfortable for my at-risk kids, because oh yeah, whatever, But for the church vibe, it was kind of a little bit off, and it was stinky, and you didn't want what are the lights where you can see what's on the walls and a black light.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have wanted to run a black light through that place. It was kind of gross.
Yeah,
but we were meeting there, and all the kids had left, and I pretty much had a group of like 30 adults and like now 12 homeschool kids again.
Yeah.
And we had this meeting and everyone was sitting in chairs, and I intentionally left one chair empty, and I had a basketball, and I was talking about how all the kids were gone. I was talking about how all these kids that had come because they were hungry to know about God. I said they came here to us and we couldn't do anything about it. And I said, I feel like I'm playing on a team and I passed the ball, but no one's there. And I threw the ball and I hit the empty metal chair and I threw it really hard. I was like, oh, just threw this ball. The chair flies up in the air, flips around and hits the ground. And one of the girls starts crying. And I realized I was totally out of line, but I was pissed. And this was the turning point, because you're like, what's next? Well, I spent the next 5 years realizing that's not the way to motivate people.
Yeah.
I went to like warrior mode. You know, the young guy who goes to warrior mode. I didn't do that with the guy with the knife. I did it with all the Christians in the circle.
Yeah, that's what I'm taking from this story.
It was
this is
wild.
the first time I've seen you like really blunder here. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Girl starts crying, and I realized like I'm out over my skis here, because I'm really mad. I'm more mad at them than I am the kids cussing me out. Because I'm thinking, we're Christians, we're the light, we're supposed to be the hope. None of us we can't even handle these like conversations with kids. I was so mad. And I ended up spending the next 5 years realizing I don't know how to develop adults. I don't know how to develop people. I know how to sit with these tough kids in difficult situations. I can do that myself, but I don't know how to help others do that with others. And so the clarity that I got was like, I can't do what's in my heart to reach all these hurting kids if I can't multiply my impact through others, which means I got to learn a whole different skill set. And so I spent basically the next couple of years just doing that. Developing student leaders and developing adult leaders, knowing that if we developed enough people, eventually we could create an army of people with the potential to actually catch the kids who need it the most. And so I started going down that path of learning, like really intentionally, how do we disciple other people? How do we help people who can see beyond the surface and see into what God's doing in the spirit, you know, and kids, you know? And that became essentially my mission at that point, was I just turned this corner and everything was about discipleship. Yeah. Everything was about growing people's capacity, not just to do a program, but to go, it doesn't matter if I have a program. I've got the Bible. I know the Lord. I'm in touch with the Holy Spirit. I can, if any person comes across my path, I can sit with them in such a way that they feel loved by God, that they feel seen, and that they feel invited to be part of the family. And we called our youth ministry Catalyst, because there was a kid at Pioneer, which was that school. His name was Javier. Javier was like the most hated kid on our campus, former jock at one of the big high schools, but he got caught selling drugs, and he'd slept with a bunch of girls. So by the time he got to Pioneer, all the girls hated him because he'd either slept with them or cheated on them with one of their girlfriends. All the guys hated him because he'd probably jilted them on money or drugs or something. So he didn't have any friends. And a huge ego, because he was a star football player. Didn't have any friends. And he went to some youth camp and met the Lord. And he came back, he's like a totally different kid. On fire for Jesus, like in a wild sort of a way. Crazy look in his eyes, like, oh my gosh. He's like, hey, I met Jesus. I met Jesus. He's like, we got to start a Christian club. And I'm like, Javier, like, that's amazing. I'm like, but in order for us to start a club, we have a problem. And he said, what's the problem? And I said, you got to have 6 kids. You got to have 6 kids who are willing to come to this, and everybody hates your guts. And he's like, don't worry about it. You get the paperwork, I'll get the kids. And so I went and got the paperwork, and he ended up we filled up my classroom immediately. We ended up with about 60 or 70 kids, all led by Javier, because I was a teacher. I couldn't lead it.
Sure.
I could only host it. So I'd open my doors. We'd have the whole classroom full, kids, you know, basically sitting in the windows. It was like he was a one-man catalyst.
Wow.
And so I called my ministry Catalyst, and the whole idea was that, like, we want to be the kind of people who, when we show up, we accelerate what God's doing in an environment. So all of my ministry, all the discipleship, everything was wrapped around being a catalyst, you know? And that's what I dedicated those ministry years were all dedicated to Catalyst.
Yeah. So does Javier join you outside of school in your like youth ministry?
He graduated from high school before I had started the youth ministry.
Okay.
And then he went in the Marines.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. You know where he's at now?
Yeah, I haven't talked with him in a couple years now, but he ended up in the Marines, and then he ended up coming out of there, and then I think he was doing some ministry stuff, and then he got into the business world.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. What about, did you go, were you in youth ministry even to today, or help me make that bridge? Because there's some holes in your story for me that I don't know about.
So when I was exiting from the schools into church,
Mm-hmm.
I felt so called at the school that when I said, if you're going to have me come over and start building your youth ministries, I need a commitment from the church that we're going to build a mentoring program for that school.
Okay.
And so I started doing a mentoring program. We started doing like a Christmas project because a lot of the kids, their basic meals were coming from school, and then over Christmas was really hard because a lot of them were functionally homeless. Mm-hmm. So we started doing the Operation Christmas project, and we would basically jackets, beanies, hoodies, socks, and like all the basic needs they would need to make it through a Christmas break.
Yeah.
Which is a couple weeks. And so we started like basically building a mentoring project and doing these practical things for this campus. And I was leading teams onto the campus all the time from our church, which in California, that's pretty semi unheard of, right? To have a church coming on campus. We just had to keep the lines really clear.
Yeah.
We weren't proselytizing, but everybody knew who we were and where we were coming from, right? Mm-hmm. So we started doing that. Well, when the youth ministry started and I had been doing the mentoring stuff, that was like a couple times a year where we were doing things on that campus. That mentoring concept, we recognized like if you could only do one thing to help a kid, it's for them to get a mentor. Mm. And so as we were building the youth ministry side, the building that was next door to our church, we had just purchased a building. It was like a 22,000 square foot building, and we were building the church there, and the youth ministry was growing there. But eventually what happened is the 12,000 square foot building next door came available, and the pastor at the time, or he's still the pastor there right now, he looked at me and he knew that I was really passionate about the mentoring and the at-risk kids. And I had told him I wanted to build a youth center at one point. And I actually went down the pathway of trying to get funding for it, but I didn't know what I was doing. So it didn't really go anywhere. But this building came available, and he said, do you think this building's supposed to be for your vision? Should we do this? Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So basically what happened was we ended up raising about $1 million, and we ended up funding this building. We were going to build a youth center for the city, and with it, I was going to launch a mentoring project that we called Catalyst. Mm-hmm. So Catalyst Mentoring. So there's Catalyst, the youth ministry, and there's Catalyst Mentoring, and then there's the Catalyst Center. Okay. So we raised about $1 million. We refurbished this building, this 12,000 square foot building that became the Catalyst Center, youth center in our city. And it housed the youth ministries for the church, the kids ministries on Sundays, and then the rest of the week it was supposed to be a mentoring center for the city. Hmm. And so that Catalyst ended up taking up a ton of my time. So I was overseeing kids, junior high, high school, and their team and their volunteer leaders. There's about 150 volunteer leaders between all of that, plus my staff. Plus I started this nonprofit to mentor kids in the city, and we started recruiting, training, and placing mentors into the city for at-risk youth. Good. And so we recruited, trained, and placed about 450 mentors. We raised $1 million for the youth center. And then at this point, I was pretty much burning out because it wasn't we did it together, the raising of the money, but I was still a big part of that. I was the front face for all of that, mm-hmm. right? I'm speaking at all kinds of city events. I'm speaking at anything that got connected to youth in the city at this point was connected to me. And so, Aaron, will you come and will you be on this thing? We want your opinion on this or that, because mm-hmm. nobody had ever trained more mentors in the city, or raised $1 million for a youth center. Yeah. Like it was the mission from God for me to do this kind of a thing. And so the city rallied behind me, and amazing people, my friends. I mean, I'm thinking of people like Els Prigmore. I'm thinking of Leah Roadrunner and her entire family. I mean, I had people that just dedicated their lives with me, and we just gave everything we had for 8 years. Meanwhile, I'm still overseeing the kids and the youth, but I had people now that were running different pieces and components of that for me. And that's kind of what got me into the leadership coaching, was that our model was called a collective impact model. We looked out at the city initially with Catalyst and said, there's like 30 organizations that do mentoring, just nobody knew it because they're so small, nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
And they all have the same needs. They all need more mentors. They all need more funding. They all need better marketing, and they all need better training. So they need basically recruitment, they need training. And we got in there, and so we started recruiting, training, and placing mentors into these organizations. And so we would do these big mentor launches where we would do a boot camp, a Saturday boot camp. We'd be training mentors, and then you'd get launched out into one of these organizations. But what was happening is when I would launch a mentor into, let's say, the horse mentoring, there's a horse mentoring group, or there'd be a mentoring group at the YMCA called the Y Club, or there would be a mentoring group that just strictly went into juvenile hall. We had all these different groups. What I discovered was that if I sent a mentor to an organization, there was a reason why these organizations were small. They wouldn't call anyone back. They wouldn't get anyone background checked. They wouldn't do their diligence, even though I'm doing and spending a lot of money on marketing campaigns and recruiting mentors. We had about a 70 to 80% drop rate of people. Like once I trained you and went to hand you off, 80% of you got dropped and you would disappear. And I started getting really frustrated. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work to recruit a mentor and train them. And if you don't get them in a position to work with a kid within about the first really 14 days, but if within 30 days they're not connected to a kid, they just give up and they'll never come back. And so that caused me to then start leaning in real heavy with all these leaders of organizations, where I'm like, you're getting hey, hi, I sent you 30 mentors last month. Where are they? Why are you not calling them back?
Yeah.
Do you guys realize that, like, how much work this is taking, and you're not? Some people were responsive to that, but it put me in a position where all of a sudden now I'm mentoring executive directors of nonprofits. And then I'm sitting in on city leader level meetings when they would talk about youth, because everyone is raising money. It's a small pond. Everyone's competing for the same dollars. Yeah. But the level of actual follow through and just straight up waste was really high. And it was driving me nuts.
So you're at the point, there's tension because you've got to scale yourself again.
Yeah.
You've went from mentoring youth to mentoring youth mentors.
Yep.
And now you need to mentor the leaders of youth mentors.
Yes.
I'm following.
And then that put me at a city level. So like literally by the time we left Reading to come to Tennessee, my portrait was literally hanging in City Hall. Like it was wild.
Wow.
But it was because I had made an impact in helping, and mind you, this all comes back to, Melissa. Yeah. It all comes all the way back to Melissa. I remember one night I was driving home. It's 7, 8 o'clock at night. I've been working so hard. I'm driving home and right on Cypress Avenue, getting ready to go on I-5 South if you're from California and you've been to Reading. And there's this kid, I'm driving under the overpass, and I'm going to get on the freeway, and there's this kid walking down the street, and he's crying. He's got no shirt on, and his name was Dylan. And I just really wanted to go home. But I knew that kid's story. He didn't have a dad. His dad's some biker gang guy. His mom's got 50 million guys coming in and out of her house all the time. This kid's been in and out of juvenile hall. His sisters and other brother were going to my youth group. Nobody cares about this kid. I'm the only guy. And I could just drive past him. But I had this moment where I was like, this is my city. I don't know if you ever think about that for your city. You grew up here. Do you ever go like, this is my city? If I don't do it, if I don't do this, who is?
Yeah, I can level with that for sure.
I had this moment where I was like, this is my city. If I don't care for this kid, who's going to care for him? He's going to go commit some crime. I have no idea what's going on with him. But if I don't care for him, if I turned a blind eye to him, what hope is there for this kid?
Mm-hmm.
So I pulled my car around, pulled into the gas station, got out, went over, talked with Dylan, spent the next couple hours with him, tried to help him out, did the best that I could. But I thought, man, at what point do we take as adults who love Jesus, who love God, at what point do we take some responsibility for our kids that's maybe a little bit old school? Maybe it thinks a little bit more like a village. Maybe it thinks differently.
Yeah.
But like recognizes, I could say, look at those kids over there. Those are bad kids. Or I could say, that could have been me.
Mm-hmm.
That could have been me. Outside of the hand of God, outside of maybe someone showing up in my life. And I would rather be the guy who shows up. I don't always have the answers, but I'm going to show up.
Yeah.
And so I got super serious about that on a city level. And God did a lot in that for, a decade, over a decade.
Yeah.
Of mentors in the church, and then mentors in the city, and then mentoring the leaders of people who are mentoring kids.
Yeah.
And then doing that with city leaders and all that kind of stuff. And that's how I started getting into leadership coaching and consulting.
Okay. So at some point in this story, there's a move.
Yeah.
Are we there?
Yeah, we're getting pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you go from being that guy and this is my city? My picture's hanging in City Hall.
Yeah, it was wild.
How does that guy end up picking up? Do you have a family by then?
Oh yeah.
So you have some boys.
Yeah, I've got, I married my high school sweetheart, Sarah. We went from 3 kids to 5 kids, or we went from 2 kids to 5 kids in 6 months. We adopted my 2 oldest.
Okay.
So we adopted our daughter Jessie, and we adopted my son Jared, right as Sarah was about 8 months pregnant with our 3rd son Wyatt. So we had Toby and Noah. She's pregnant with Wyatt. We adopted Jessie and Jared all within about a 3 to 4 month period of time.
Oh, wow.
In the middle of, Jared had been a former student of mine at Pioneer. So I had just been out of teaching at Pioneer for about a year or 2, and then we had brought them on.
Okay.
So our family, was full. But long story short was, there was stuff that was happening on the church level where the lead guy and I were just not, we were the only 2 left from the original team that started the church. They had, and I don't want to get into the details of that, but we burned through a lot of leaders, and he and I just weren't seeing eye to eye on things. And I'd avoided conflict with him for a long time. And finally I was like, we have to start having conflict because I'm not doing myself any favor, and it was just wrong. And so we started having hard talks, and I was pretty burned out. I just raised $1 million. There was a lot of frustration around the youth center itself because of the amount of money that I had to continue to raise, on top of still having all the responsibilities in the church. And I was just taxed, and I needed a sabbatical, but the church at the time wasn't willing to give me one because they wanted me to raise a little bit more money. And I'm like, dude, I don't ask for a break very often, but I'm like, I need a break. Yeah. And they didn't give it to me. And I was basically like on the edge of a very serious burnout. Okay. And so that had pushed me to the limit where I decided to resign from the church. And the problem is the nonprofit was residing under the covering of the church, but nobody could do what I was doing. Like I had where at least where it was at the moment, nobody could do it. I needed to separate them. But in order to separate them, I had to walk away from the Catalyst Center. And I had to make a really big decision, which is the movement more important than the facility? Because the facility and the movement had become synonymous. Yeah. And I decided what I'm building is bigger than that building. And so I basically resigned and asked them to separate out Catalyst from the church and it became its own nonprofit.
Okay.
And we still did some things in partnership, but we kind of basically were like slowly disconnecting. And we disconnected those things. It allowed me to let go of all my responsibilities on the church side. And I had developed leaders and handed everything off there. So I felt pretty good about that part.
Yeah.
And it allowed me just to focus on the nonprofit side. But then the nonprofit side, like I said, we had recruited, trained, and placed so many mentors. But then now I'm having to mentor all these leaders of these nonprofits to get them to not drop our mentors once we recruit them, train them, and place them. And I was realizing we need to change our model in that nonprofit. So I'm not going to send out to 30 organizations anymore. I'm only going to send out to organizations I know will follow through. Everyone else, we're going to keep the mentors ourselves, and we're going to go direct to campuses. So we got on 5 campuses, and we started mentoring, I think we were mentoring like 300 kids through direct campus mentoring through Catalyst. And we had just got that up and running. We were running for about a year. COVID hit. And within 24 hours, we can't set foot on campus. And so we're thinking, holy shnikes. And a bunch of our funding was tied directly to being on campuses.
Yeah.
So they caught us right in a funding window where they hadn't sent the money yet, but all of the money was tied to our direct impact on campuses, and they froze the distribution of the money. And so Catalyst all of a sudden can't be on campuses. All of our funding is frozen. And I was in the middle of this. I was exhausted and burned out. And I'm like, I don't know how we're going to do this. And so I had brought on this gal that her name was Jenna. And I had her working under me as like helping me administrate this, and was kind of like mentoring her and helping her get started. And Jenna was different than me. I'm more of like a very high relationship vision guy. And I can see things like way down the road. And so I could see way down the road exactly what Catalyst needed, but I didn't have any fuel to go do it. So I had laid out this path for Jenna, but the funding had frozen up. And so I gave my last effort of energy, and I laid out a path for what we could do to get through this COVID time. We built a mini youth center, and we started doing mentoring in small numbers all week long because kids were stuck at home. We were mentoring like in micro mentoring units. We were having kids coming out in shifts. We had mentors show up with masks and dividing walls. Can you imagine mentoring a kid with a dividing wall? It's just ridiculous. And California was very intense.
Yeah.
So we're literally like mentoring kids through that. And once we got that up and going, I knew I didn't have any gas left in the tank. And so I just turned to Jen and I was like, do you want it? Like, do you want to run with this? Because I don't got anything left. And she was like, yeah. So she took on Catalyst, and at this point, I'm like a free agent, but totally beat up.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't get into all the church detail stuff because it's just painful. But
is Catalyst still going?
Yeah. So Catalyst, Jenna took it on.
Yeah.
They made it through COVID. She took the school-based model because we built curriculums, and like all of it was also aligned with the school's character goals for the kids. And she took that, and when we got past COVID, she had somehow during COVID, or it was right before COVID, she was working for us, but we created space for her to then do this internship at the County Office of Education. So she'd made all these like really powerful connections at the County Office of Education. So when she stepped in and took over in COVID, it was this micro thing, but she had big relationships. So when COVID dropped, she was able to expand, and which was our plan all along, but COVID hit and it stopped us. Well, she took what we had and then she expanded it to like 20 campuses. And so Catalyst started growing. She's really good administratively, and so she just grew it to us on campuses. And then what happened was there was another nonprofit that was one of like the top 3 nonprofits in our area at the time. And their leader, there had been something that happened and he ended up moving on and they needed someone. So they tapped Jenna and Catalyst got rolled under this other nonprofit. It still exists, still doing its work, but now it's under a much larger nonprofit. And I think she just got named, their nonprofit got named Nonprofit of the Year for Northern California.
Oh, wow.
Like this year. So she's continued to grow it, which is pretty cool.
Does it make you pretty happy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's grown beyond me at this point, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so get us to Cleveland. How do you... You gave us your catalyst sort of...
You got the whole crazy story.
Yeah.
We separated out.
Yeah.
I was pretty beat up.
Why Cleveland?
That's a great question. Okay. We felt like, I thought I was never going to leave Shasta County. I thought I'd be buried there, you know? But
That might still be true. Your youngest son's out there, isn't he?
Yeah, he just moved back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I can't see being back in California, dude.
Yeah.
It's rough out there.
I got you.
I love it. It's a great hometown. I feel like a superstar when I go back and visit, but I can't see living there anymore. But I love all my Shasta County people, if you see this. Anyhow, I had started doing a little bit of consulting on the side. And I was working with the senator for a year. That was my first client, actually. Just helping him with team dynamics and some stuff that he was wrestling through.
The senator, like from your district out there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I was coaching him. I was working with some other business leaders. And I had helped start a school somehow in the middle of all this at the same time called the California Adventure Academy during COVID. We had, because if you're outdoors, technically you didn't have to wear a mask, and we didn't really buy that anyways. So we had kids that were doing a combo of a homeschool collaborative with outdoor recreation. So kids were learning how to fishing and hiking and shooting bows and arrows. Like, you think any outdoor adventure thing that you could do tied with homeschool. So half the day you did homeschool, the other half the day you did adventure stuff. And we grew that school from 30 kids to 300. But the other founder, he and I just like couldn't quite get on the same page. And so he was kind of over-promising, and we couldn't deliver on the stuff that he was over-promising. And I finally had to back out of that. So I'm kind of getting to this point where I felt a little bit trapped in a box. Everybody knows me as the youth guy. But at the same time, the youth guy or Aaron the pastor, these are all kind of synonymous. But I was feeling a little bit trapped. But one night, I mean, this is going to sound really woo-woo, but I had a dream. And in the dream, there was this truck, and it was loaded to the hilt, kind of like Beverly Hillbillies. Yeah. And my whole family was in the truck. And I just heard in this dream, it's time to go. And I was like, what the heck? And it woke me up out of a dead sleep. I was sweating. I woke up, sat up straight in the middle of bed. My wife's like, what's up? And I told her the dream, and I went back to bed, and we didn't talk about it. But I could every day for like 3 weeks. It's time to go. It's time to go. It's time to go. And I came home one day, and I was driving down our little country road. We lived out in the country a little bit, and driving down this road, getting ready to pull in. I pull in the driveway, and I'm just hearing it's time to go. I walk in. My wife's at the kitchen counter. I don't know where the kids were. And she looked at me and she said, we're not supposed to ignore that dream, right? And I'm like, no. This makes no sense. Like, my portrait's in City Hall. Like, all of our network, all of our people are here. I feel like on a spiritual heart level committed myself to the city. Yeah. But at the same time, I've totally burned out. I've handed off my baby, of Catalyst. For whatever reason, I'm feeling more disconnected from like the youth of the city. Not that I don't care, but like something shifted in me. I'm starting to think more about leaders. I'm thinking differently also about there's an entrepreneurial part of me that needs to be exercised somehow, but I don't see where, how. I'm starting to coach some high-level leaders, and I'm finding a lot of joy in that. but I don't know what's next. And then I have this dream. And so we just were like, well, let's like kind of throw out a fleece here. You know, like if we wanted to move, just theoretically, where might we be interested in going? Neither one of us have ever really lived anywhere but Redding. So we literally got on a plane with our friends and we started driving through kind of the southeast a little bit.
Now, I think there's a sign up there in California as well at that time that was like, hey, you should move to Tennessee. Because there's a lot of people, a lot of people came this way from California.
Yeah, yeah.
I won't bunch you into that group, but I think
Well-
that sign exists up there or
Well,
something.
when we moved here, I know there's a lot of people that had stickers on the back of the car that said, "Don't California my Tennessee." And I'm like, I don't want to. I want to Tennessee the California out of me, you know?
Yeah.
So, but, you know, it was very difficult. I was getting pulled towards politics pretty heavy at this point.
Mhm.
You know, I'm helping a senator. I'm very involved in local politics, and I'm going, do I want to spend my 40s in politics in California? You know, now I know a lot of people would be like, hey, you know, we need people with God's heart in politics, but I just did not feel called to that. It's a messy business, and judge me if you want, but I didn't want to be in it. Well, we got on a flight. We flew out here. We rented a car. We started literally driving through different states. We're driving through Arkansas and, you know, driving through a little bit of Alabama.
Where'd you fly into?
Did we fly into Little Rock? I think we flew into Little Rock.
Okay.
And then we got a car and just started driving.
Yeah.
We started just driving, like literally, I mean, totally
You
random.
got the whole family with you? It's
No,
just
no,
you
no.
and your wife?
Me and my wife and one of our best friends,
Okay.
Leah and Pork. His name's Pork.
I like him already.
Yeah, me and Pork, Leah, and Sarah, we're all in a car, and we were just driving. We're visiting different cities, looking around, and we knew one family from Redding that had lived in Cleveland. The wife grew up in Athens, actually,
Okay.
and they landed in Cleveland, and so I had messaged them. I'm like, hey, you know, you guys are in Cleveland, like, where's that at? You know, and they're like, oh, here's, you know, where it is. I'm like, oh, we're kind of like looking around, and they're like, come see us.
So as you drove through Memphis, there was no temptation of like,
Well, we stopped in Memphis, and we were just glad we didn't get robbed. So we got through Memphis, and I was like, woo. We made it through, was it Bill Street? I think we like stayed in a hotel right off Bill Street.
yeah.
Yeah, and we were like, it was a ghost town, actually. It was kind of creepy. It was like,
Is it
where
Bill
everybody?
Street in Memphis?
Yeah.
And Bourbon Street's in New Orleans?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Because I almost said Bourbon.
I always get those two mixed up.
But I remember because we were playing the song "Walking in
Yeah,
Memphis."
there you go.
Walking with my feet 10
Eat
feet
some
off
barbecue
of Beale. Yeah.
down there off of Beale Street. No?
No, we ate some other restaurant. It was good.
Huh.
But we made our way down here, and it felt like Redding from the 90s. Smaller town, you know, family vibes, lots of churches, still country, a little bit country, you know.
Mhm.
And it felt the best out of all the places that we'd been.
Mm-hmm.
So we went home and we were like, well, let's see what happens if we put our house up for sale. You know, so a lot of people moved out of California.
Yeah.
A lot of people just shifted from the city to the country.
Okay.
So a lot of people in the Bay Area, like think San Francisco area, that's the middle of the state.
Yeah.
In COVID, their lives got completely shut down. We're talking about like your neighbors will call you in if you're not wearing a mask.
And be rewarded for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so these guys are like, we got to get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
So what would happen is those guys could sell their crappy little home for $1 million or $2 million and come up and buy whatever they want where we were at. Because, you know, the pricing, we're like country pricing and they're city pricing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's what was happening here. As you know,
Yeah.
people from California were just coming in here and buying cash, paying cash for houses.
oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, would offer you over the asking price if you would
Oh, yeah.
bump them to the front of the line.
Oh.
It's wild.
Well, we got here at the wrong timing.
Yeah.
Because I think we got here at the climax of that. Because we tried to buy a house when we got here. We were getting beat out. We were getting beat out. I mean, I think we tried, I don't know, 8 different times to buy a home. Just didn't work. Finally, like, I guess we're going to rent for a while.
Yeah.
Wait till this calms down.
Yeah.
I think it blew up this market here. You
It
know?
blew it up so bad.
Yeah, it's horrible. Well, and the same
Yeah.
thing was happening to us in Redding.
Yeah.
Like the Bay Area people would sell, and then they're coming up with $2 million cash. They can buy whatever they want, and they still have a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
and they're super stoked. Well, we got home and we put our house up, and our house sold once we put it on the market within 48 hours for the most any house in our neighborhood had ever sold for.
Wow.
It was just like, and we were like, I guess we're doing this. We had like I think we had 3 or 4 other families that were supposed to come with us, but they kind of got cold feet, and they weren't really called to go.
Yeah.
They didn't have a dream that was like, it's time to go. So we really kind of like, this was kind of a faith journey. We just said, you know what, we're going to go. I don't even know what's on the other side. I'm going to try and rebuild the leadership coaching stuff that I'm doing. I'm going to try and do it in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And everyone had gotten used to Zoom at this point because of COVID. So I'm like, I can kind of coach leaders from wherever. And I'm going to go out there and we're going to try and rebuild from there. And so that's what we did. We literally sold our home, our dream home. I miss it, but sold it. We moved out here. And then I wanted to dive all the way headlong back into work, but I was still on the tail end of that burnout. I mean, that burnout took me 5 years to get over. I mean, that was really rocked me hard. Yeah. And that's a whole nother story, but we got out here and I thought I was going to dive right back into work. And at one point I had I think 8 different podcasts I was supposed to be on, of different friends' podcasts. And every time I'd go to be on the podcast, the internet in my neighborhood would go out. Things totally crash. I'm like, what the heck? It kept happening, and I was so upset and really mad. And I, driving around, I didn't even know where I was actually at the time. I'd love to tell you what street I was on. I don't know where I was. Just driving around Cleveland somewhere, upset because I can't even do a freaking podcast in this dang little town called Cleveland. I can't even, because the internet kept crashing on me and it was driving me nuts. And but I came home. And my wife's like, man, I feel like God's really telling you just to rest. Like you went so hard for the last 11 years. I really did go hard. I'd be up at 5, home at 7 or 8.
You had to be to live that story you just told me.
Oh, it was insane. It was totally insane. And my family paid the price for that, right? I love my family. We're really close. But they paid that price. I remember in the middle of my burnout, my wife looked at me one time and she said, we love you, but you got some trust to earn back with us. And so when we moved out here and I started to jump back into that pace, and then the podcasts that weren't working out, I was getting really frustrated. She's like, I feel like you're supposed to rest. We got a nest egg here from selling the house. Why don't we rest? And so that had not occurred to me. I'm thinking, you got to work. And, but we talked about it and we decided, you know what, let's do that. So I basically took a year off, and all I did was dad really hard.
Yeah.
Took my wife on dates every week, and just focused on getting back in church and being totally dedicated to my family. It is the blessing of moving to Tennessee, was that we had complete anonymity here.
Yeah.
In Redding, or Shasta County, I can't go anywhere without getting interrupted. Costco, my wife wouldn't take me to Costco anymore. She's like, I can't get 5 feet without someone stopping you. I was like a politician, basically.
Yeah.
So we came out here and we're walking through Costco, nobody's stopping us. And everyone's like, this is so cool. Yeah. We'd go to dinner, no one's interrupting us. And so my family was loving it. And for me, I felt like, what have I done? But it ended up being a huge blessing for us because it's right as my boys were stepping into high school. Just critical years where I know so many of our friends that your kids start growing up and out of the house, and then the mom and dad get divorced because they don't even know who they are anymore. That's not our story. We shifted at this pivotal moment. It was real hard on the kids, but we shifted right at this moment. And then I took all this time off and just spent all this quality time with my family. And it's just been amazing, just amazing. As they're stepping into adulthood, we're closer than we've ever been, with my whole family. And so that's been the blessing of Tennessee, is the best part is 0 distractions, just getting to be a husband and a father. And God's been so good in that way. So, yeah.
Yeah. So now you have, let's see, you got one boy at Grand Canyon University.
Yeah.
And then
Toby.
And then the youngest just moved to Reading.
Not my youngest, my middle son.
Middle. Youngest is here.
He's still at Walker.
Valley
He's a
High
freshman.
School.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah. My middle son, Noah, graduated from Walker early. He graduated in December.
Yeah.
He's in California.
Okay.
Back in Reading, living with Grandpa.
Yeah.
He's happy as a clam.
Very cool.
My daughter goes to Lee.
Okay.
So she's in her junior year. She's in their kind of accounting program there. And then White's a freshman.
Okay. Awesome. So you took your year. You picked up pickleball.
That's where I met you.
Is that when you started playing pickleball?
I went out. I went down to these courts to start playing. And when I was hearing pickleball,
yeah,
thought, man, this is going to be fun. Proceeded to get beat up by 70 and 80-year-old men and women for about 6 to 8 months. I met you. You probably beat me up a bit.
That's not true.
Then started meeting all my friends in Cleveland came from pickleball.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this sport is so addicting. And we lived in the neighborhood right next to it.
Yeah.
So I would just literally, I'd walk down every night. And then the kids would see me walking down the street with a paddle. And they're like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to go play pickleball. And then it was great because that was when I wasn't working at all.
Yeah.
So I'd play in the mornings. I'd play at night. I'd take my wife on a date in the middle of the day, which is a cheap date. It's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So the kids would go to school. We'd go on a date in the middle of the day, and then I'd go play pickleball in the morning and at night. And then the kids were like, I want to play pickleball. I'm like, well, come down. So my whole family would end up down at the pickleball courts, at least all the boys.
Yeah.
You know, because like they would want to watch TV if I stayed there.
Sure.
But because I'm playing a sport, and they're like, I want to beat Dad at pickleball. So everyone's coming down and playing pickleball.
Yeah.
And so pickleball became kind of like this family obsession for a little while.
Now, what percentage of your Cleveland contacts came from pickleball, would you say?
95%.
A lot, yeah.
Almost 100%.
Wow.
I'm trying to think of someone who I didn't meet from pickleball. The only people who I didn't meet from pickleball were the parents from the boys' soccer team playing with Walker.
Yeah, sure.
They're like about the only ones.
Yeah, for those that would listen to this that don't know, that pickleball community, man, it's like all walks of life just spill out a person or two, and they all meet up.
Yeah.
And they get to know each other, and they love each other, and they, hey, how you doing, you know?
Oh, the nicest people.
Yeah.
The nicest people. I was like, dude, pickleball is like a better community in a lot of ways than church.
For sure.
Because at church, someone talks on you sing some songs, someone talks on a stage, you can turn around and walk out and not talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Pickleball, you're meeting 3 or 4 new people every 20 to 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the first time that, when I started playing pickleball, I wanted to go. A friend of mine had invited me, and I was like, I got to go play where there's nobody watching first.
Yeah.
So we went over to the county courts, and we played just a couple games. And that's what's so awesome about pickleball. You play a couple games, and you're like, oh, I'm pretty good at this.
Right.
So we go over to Tinsley, and I'm like, all right, I'll jump in this line and play with some people. And me and my friend, we got up against these 2 old guys named Mike and Daryl Rose. And he's laughing because Mike and Daryl Rose were like racquetball state runner-ups in California before they came to Tennessee.
But they're older, man. So you look at them and you think, we're gonna wipe.
Yeah,
we'll
compared
take
to
it
us,
easy
these
on
guys
them.
can barely move.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they shellacked us. I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? But I said that to say,
so fun.
I get to know those guys, and they're from California, and they're telling me stories. And
incredible.
Mike, and you said earlier that you'd rather go hang out with World War II vets. I've always had an affinity to old guys.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I want to hang out with old guys because they've got things that my 40 peers don't have.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
That's a wisdom that God gave me that I didn't recognize until I'm older. But Mike tells stories, and I love to hear him talk. And I don't want to get off on my. I
get coffee with him about once a month. I try to.
They're awesome
because they're the neatest, and they're brothers, and they're like in their 70s and 80s, and they'll whoop you at pick. I told them, I was like, I feel like I know I'm living a good life if I can still be playing pickleball when I'm your age.
Oh yeah,
I did something right because
for sure
they're for their age, the fact that they're out there, they're killing it.
Yeah. So let's see. You took a year off. You played pickleball. You got the boys. Now they're doing their thing. You've got people all over the country.
Yeah.
What are you doing now? What's your
Yeah.
weekly look like now? Because I know that you're, and this is part of why I wanted you to meet Paul so bad. He calls himself a teacher of teachers, and he
Yeah.
literally teaches teachers.
Literally.
But he's
Yeah.
also a guy that you'll see, him and the pastor will be walking, or him and the principal will be walking. And if you know him, he's literally mentoring those people.
Wow.
He's the guy that goes to the pastor and says, no, really, how are you?
Yeah.
And you
Good.
and him have a lot in common, I think, in your heart when it comes to those kind of things. But is that what you're doing now?
Kind of. I definitely have had a heart for pastors and have kind of like post burnout have done a lot of that, similar kind of a thing. But there was a pastor that I used to work with, and his wife died. She got the shot, and then she had a stroke, and then she died. And I just, I felt like reaching out to him, and so I'd reached out to him, and he was like, he's in his 60s, and he was just kind of like, I'm rethinking what's next for me. And, I was like, man, I think you would be a good coach. Let me teach you how to get some clients. And so I was helping him and teaching him how to coach. And he kind of like his first group that he landed was a potential whale, in that it was a senior living company there was a franchise, and he was going to church with an owner within the franchise. And so he was like, they want me to come speak at this thing, but he's like, I don't actually know the first thing about what I'm doing in this. And he's like, you got to meet my friend Aaron, who's teaching me all this. And so I oddly enough landed in the senior living world. And I started coaching leaders within this company. And so now I've got leaders in, like 10 different states or something. And I'm coaching a whole bunch of their house managers and administrators and owners. And so I spend most of my week basically coaching leaders around the country.
Yeah.
And where I focus on is people and culture. I'm not going to jump in and look at your books and streamline your finances. I'm going to come in and look at people and culture. I want to look at how are we treating one another, and what's the environment that we're creating, because when a leader grows, what happens is it creates the opportunity for everyone underneath them to grow. And then practically on a business level, what that does is when your leadership grows and your culture improves, it reduces retention. It reduces the turnover in your business.
Sure, yeah.
And it increases retention. Right? It increases the number of people that you can keep and reduces that turnover. And so what we were finding is a lot of these senior living homes, because of the people that they end up employing, they end up having a lot of turnover, and the leaders get put into that position because practically and tactically they're good at the job. They're really good at taking care of a senior. They can, do all the things that they need to do, but then that doesn't make them a good leader. But most people get promoted because they're good at the job, not because they have leadership skills. And these are two completely different things. And so in the senior living world at large, there's high turnover. And people think the turnover is, we just picked the wrong person. It's like, well, no, you didn't pick the wrong person, but you're not realizing how you lead a group of people is completely different than how you actually lead yourself, right? They go together, but the ability to lead is different than the ability to do. And so we're closing the leadership gap from, I know how to do this myself, versus I know how to lead people to do this. Because now there's different elements that come into play, like emotional intelligence, the art of conflict, all of these different human pieces that maybe I had unconscious competence in starting as a teacher, and then grew and developed through that world, and then grew and developed through church, and then grew and developed through leading leaders, that now like all of this is coming together into me helping grow and shape leaders in the senior living world. And now we're actually building a larger platform so that we can begin to accelerate and grow our footprint in the senior living world, because the other discovery that we've been having is that a lot of the people who bought into the senior living world bought in the 90s or early 2000s, and they're aging out right now. They're in their 70s. They're getting into that place where the people who founded these franchises or companies, they had vision for their life, but they don't have any transition plan to their family
Mm-hmm.
or to who's going to take over. Can you imagine being 77 and you're probably a multimillionaire, but you have no idea how to hand this company off? And it's
Yeah.
fallen operationally. It's not that you don't care, but operationally you don't have the same level of energy or desire to do that because now you're financially successful,
Mm-hmm.
but you haven't set your team up for success to run underneath you. What's going to happen when you pass the baton? Do you even have a opportunity there? And so what we're building is the infrastructure, because we can come in, I'm building the team right now, that we can do full-on audits of your business to streamline and look at your business from every single level, from people and culture, from your books to all of your processes, and help you understand where are the gaps that you're missing, and then how do you pass the baton so that your life's work doesn't fall apart when you step out.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the next phase of what I'm building with our leadership side of what I'm doing.
You know Tom Johnson?
No.
He's at the Cigar Lounge.
Oh, okay.
You know, I don't know if he's there every day, but quite often if you go in at a certain time, you'll find him.
Yeah.
He's a local guy.
Okay.
Sort of a local legend. He's a big football legend from high school, and then he went on and played for the UT Vols. And
wow.
And then he went. I get mixed up whether it was him or his brother or both that did some time in the NFL. Played on a couple NFL teams back in the day. But anyways, I knew that Tom was in the senior living space. To what degree, I don't know if he's an owner or if he's I don't know. But we were sitting, and I have an affinity to the old guys.
Yeah.
And, I was sitting and watching him just put on a master class of people skills at the lounge one day. He talked to everybody in the room, and he never spoke a word about himself.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
Before he would move on, he would find a way to compliment and to make that person feel heard and seen. And so this is just what's going on. I have enough awareness to watch him give this master class. And it's going in a circle, and I can see it happening. And
so cool.
And I decided before he gets to me, I'm going to flip this circle. So as soon as he compliments the last person, I just sort of found that dead space, and I was like, Mr. Johnson, how do you go from playing football at UT to being in this space that you're in now? And I just wanted to take a prod and get him talking. And his face lit up. And I knew immediately, before he said words, I knew he wanted to be in this. But he gave me the story. And I want to get him on the podcast sometime, so I'll tell the whole story. But I ended up asking him, because as he spoke, he kept referring in an endearing way to the patients, which is the product that they create, is the care of these patients. And he would say, it's at the end of the day, we're all taking care of mama. We're taking care of grandma. And I was like, Mr. Johnson, with as many people employed in this business that you're in, how do you take a guy like me, 40-something, probably sharp, whatever he does, he's probably good at it. How do you take a guy like me and you make sure that in his heart he's taking care of mama? How do you pass that on? Is that it's either there or it isn't there kind of thing? And he takes me through this just beautiful explanation of sort of his approach, and he lands on a book recommendation of a book called Grit. You know this book? It's a book that this lady wrote, and she's done some TED Talks. If you want sort of the cliff notes, she's on YouTube giving TED Talks. But she answers the question at like West Point of like, how are people who didn't fly off the charts in these entry measurements, how are they going on to run universities and major teams? And so she starts cutting those qualities up. And I haven't read the book yet, so I'm not recommending it to you, but I'm just telling you what the things you were just telling me, because genuinely in our conversation, I was faced with a wall that I did not know the answer to. Wow. I couldn't even speculate. I wanted to say, Mr. Johnson, you got to be nearing retirement. How do you pass this on? How do you, and it takes me right to the same place that you just mentioned. So I totally I think I understand
There's
what you're talking
there's
about.
a Franciscan priest, and this is probably heretical if you're Baptist, but there's a Franciscan priest out there. His name's Richard Rohr,
Mm-hmm.
and he wrote a book called Falling Upwards, and he talks about this idea of a spirituality for two halves of life. And the idea is like, for most people, the first half of your life is building your identity, building your cup, building your vessel, your ability to carry who you are and what you do. And that it's a little bit more ego driven. It's a little bit more about what you can produce. And a lot of people never get out of this. They live their whole life and it's all about them.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a spirituality for the second half of life, is that eventually, if you mature enough, you get to a place where your cup's overflowing, and actually what you need to do is you need to pour it out. It's no longer about your ego. It's no longer about what you can do for you. It's about your ability to give away and to be a blessing to others. Now, that's a really probably shoddy overview of the book, but it gets you the big ideas. The second half of life is about giving away. It's about mentoring. It's about pouring your wisdom. And the thing that I see is like, a lot of people get in, whether even if it's not senior living, even if it's maybe you're running an insurance company, or maybe you're, whatever your business is, even a construction company, whatever, you get to this place in your life where you have so much wisdom and financially you're doing really well. At some point, how much does your cup have to overflow before you start looking out and going, how do I mentor someone? How do I see the Matt and go, Matt, I see the character in you. I see the intelligence in you. I see a desire to care for and love people. I want to take you under my wing, and I want to share with you, and I want to walk alongside you, and I actually want to hand this to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like at some point, a lot of people think that they're building a family business until it's time to start handing it off, and they can't hand it off, and it's because their ego is still too tied to the thing. They haven't learned how to switch into the second half of life, which is give everything away. You can't take anything with you when you die anyways. You came into this world naked with no money, and you're going to leave this world naked, and you can't take anything with you.
Mm-hmm.
Why not give it away?
Yeah.
Like, I want to live like that now. Do I financially want to be successful and all that? Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be good. But I really am pretty like interested in this idea of like, how do I give away everything I'm learning? It's why sometimes I might come across as a know-it-all, but the spirit isn't to be a know-it-all.
Mm-hmm.
The spirit is, man, if I've learned something of value to me, and it seems like that's something that could benefit you, here, that's something I've learned.
Yeah.
And I like that about you, by the way, because I feel like that's where you and I have connected. Every time I get around you, whether it's mostly at Holy Smokes at this point, but when you listen, I'm like, oh man, like I feel like I'm learning something, something of values coming my way. And I just wish more people would recognize that at some point you're getting in your 60s or your 70s, there's such an opportunity for you to shape the vision and the future of how people engage with the world. And there's nothing more beautiful or naturally incentivized than that than a business.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more, if you're successful in what you do, if you would take someone on to bring them under your wing and to hand this to them, that person is now naturally incentivized to not be an idiot and to actually listen to you and learn from you. Now, of course, you got to find the right guy. You got to find the Matt.
Sure.
You don't want to cast your pearls before swine, but there's a lot of 30-something, 40-something-year-old, even 50-something-year-old men right now. This generation that's owning, most of the owners are in the boomer generation. They call it the silver tsunami. Mm-hmm. It's the largest generation in human history. They happen to also be the wealthiest generation in human history. And they also have been a generation that doesn't know how to hand things off.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say that in a critical way. So it's the isness of their life.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be a learning of how we hand things off earlier. Not to say that doesn't mean you can't be influential. Not to say You have to give away all your revenue or, whatever. There's ways to do this that are beautiful, that honor you, that honor your journey, but also that ensure that your vision goes for another 50 years. And we got to find it.
Yeah. I can't help but as you talk about this on like this big scale, my mind keeps drifting to like another one of those, like, thank God for whoever this was. But like when I was 20, I went into a chain of command at the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
And now at 42, looking back, it was true. And it was true even when I was told this, that there's this, even amongst younger leaders, there's this inclination that if I teach somebody to replace me, well, they'll replace me, and it's
Right.
just, it's not true in that way, in that context.
Right.
But if you can create, and this was a leader of mine that told me, like, in any leadership position, whether you're the rank in the room or you're just the wise one in the room, to cause people to be able to do what you can do, you shouldn't be threatened by that.
Right.
Does that make sense to you at all?
Well, I mean, I think about like this, like, let's say you give away a skill set to me. You haven't lost. What you've just become is like a father in my life.
That's right. And if I do it from a place of true care, genuine care, I'm not going to create an enemy all of a sudden that wants to cut my face off. And if I'm in an organization that would allow that to happen, then
you got bigger problems.
Yeah, you got bigger problems than that.
But I think what people miss out on is, like, if you give away what you've learned, what's going to happen is actually that person's going to look back and go, man, who was it that invested me? That was Matt. Man, oh, he also taught me this. Oh, he also taught me that. And all of a sudden there's this like level of, and I don't want to make it too intense, but there's almost a level of reverence. Like, I have kids from Pioneer that still call me. I haven't taught there in almost 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I still have kids calling me. They're in their 30s now. I had a kid call me, he's become a police officer this last year. He called me recently, just wanted to talk, wanted to get some wisdom, and like, he hasn't been in school. We were in Pioneer like 2010, so, we're talking a good 15 years, whatever.
Yeah.
So my thought here is, like, you become a father or a mother in their life when you give that away. It doesn't make you less. But on a larger scale, we're about to face a wave of this that's completely new. It's the AI wave. And it's not, the new value in the leadership world is not knowledge. Knowledge is in my hand. I've got all of knowledge that we can think of is in my hand right now.
Yeah.
So knowledge isn't actually the value. It used to be knowledge is power, or even access to knowledge is power. Not so much. You know what I think the new leadership advantage is?
What's that?
Emotional intelligence. Because what's happening is right now is, like, there will still be jobs for humans. I don't know what they're all going to be. There's still going to be jobs for humans. But the problem is our young people are coming into the workforce with a lower level of social skills than ever before, a lower level of confidence and ability to deal with conflict. And if you don't have the emotional and social skills and talents to be able to help develop people, you're not going to be as valuable as the person who does.
That's right.
So I look at that older gentleman that you were talking about. His superpower has served him his whole life. But if he were our age and he had that same skill set for the next decade, that's the guy that I would bet on.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is AI is going to soak up all the analytical type jobs, but all of the people-oriented jobs, the ability to help people to solve problems and get together and get on a team and work united, those are the people who are going to thrive. Because all the analytical stuff is going to get soaked up by computers who honestly can do it faster and better than us.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think, like, this EQ, emotional intelligence thing, is something that's coming, but that's not something that you can hold back. That's something we have to give away. I can't give it away fast enough. I'm going to keep talking about it. And certain people are going to grab it and rise up. and it's going to become a blessing to the ultimate outcome. Like in senior living, it's the residents, right? It's mama,
Yeah.
you know, but that emotional intelligence piece becomes really like the value.
Yeah. Well, dude, me and you are just gonna have to like stop. It's something because we could just I could keep talking to you all day. I wish Paul would have been here. Missed you, Paul. Wish you could have been here for this one, man.
I think I missed you.
We're gonna, yeah. I'm gonna force him to get in your space very soon. So
yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, man. Thanks. I had a great conversation. I learned a lot about you myself, and God, I'm glad you're in Cleveland, dude. Whatever brought you here, I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here, man.
And I hope you stay around for a while.
I will say this about Cleveland is I've met so many genuine people here.
Yeah.
You know, not that there weren't genuine people in California, because I got people I love and always call family, but you know, I've met a handful of people here that are just like the best people that I know. So I'm just grateful to be here, man.
Good. Well, I'm good to have you. And thank you all for hanging out with us and listening to us. Gosh, we're at 2 hours and 5 minutes. Did it feel like 2 hours?
Only because I have to pee.
Me too. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.